Hi everybody, welcome back to the Astral Irma channel. Let's talk about the shape of the Earth. Is it flat? Is it round and spherical? Is it neither? Or is it both? Because this whole flat Earth conversation has gotten so out of control that people don't even realize what they're arguing about anymore. People are picking a side, defending it like it's their identity, and at the same time, almost nobody is stepping back and asking what's actually being presented to them and why. That's the first thing that needs to be understood here. It's something created by the CIA and has been pushed, shaped, and amplified in a very specific way. This isn't a debate that just formed naturally. And the reason for that is simple. If you can't stop information from leaking out, then the next best thing you can do is bury it under so much contradiction that nobody knows what's real anymore. And that's exactly what's happening here. You've got people waking up and realizing that NASA lies. That is great. And it's also absolutely true. NASA does lie. It acts as a cover, it filters information, and it presents a version of reality that is incomplete at best and misleading at worst. And then what happens is people stop there and don't look at it deeper. They don't ask what NASA is covering and why. Instead, they jump straight to the conclusion that everything must be fake and that the Earth must be flat. And I could even make a case for that because we are inside of a controlled lunar matrix system, okay? But making that simple jump, that's where the trap is. Because what you're looking at is a classic mix of truth and distortion. You take something real, like the fact that NASA lies, and then you attach a false conclusion to it. Now, anyone who questions NASA feels like they found the truth, but they're actually being redirected into another controlled narrative. And once that happens, people start arguing with each other instead of actually understanding anything. And that conflict is the point. Because when people are divided, they're not focused, they're just reacting. Now let's talk about the shape of the Earth, because this is where things need to be grounded again. The Earth is not flat. I know I may lose some subscribers over this, but it's okay. Just hear me out. The Earth is not flat, but at the same time, it's also not this perfect, clean, mathematically flawless sphere that you see in textbooks or CGI images. It's natural, irregular, and it's uneven. The best way to describe it is it's shaped like a potato. And I know that sounds almost too simple, but it actually explains a lot more than people realize. When people imagine a sphere, they imagine something perfectly smooth and symmetrical. But that's not how natural bodies form. The Earth has variations in mass, density, elevation, and structure. It has bulges, depressions, and an uneven distribution of material across its surface. And those irregularities affect everything. They affect gravity, they affect magnetic fields, and they affect ocean currents. And they even affect how light behaves across long distances. So when somebody says, I can see farther than I should be able to if the Earth is curved, they may be looking over a flat area, or what they're seeing is a combination of an uneven surface and atmospheric distortion. Because the atmosphere itself is not uniform either. You've got layers of air with different temperatures, pressures, and densities, and those layers bend light. So what you think you're seeing in a straight line is actually being subtly curved and distorted as it travels through those layers. That's why sometimes objects appear farther away than expected. That's why ships can seem visible longer than they should be. It's not because the Earth is flat, it's because the system is more complex than a perfect geometric model. Now let's move into the firmament, because this is where a lot of people get pulled in emotionally. The idea that there's a dome over Earth, a literal solid barrier that we're enclosed within. And I understand why people think that, because when you look up, the sky really does feel like a ceiling. it curves around you, it creates a sense of enclosure, and then when people see videos of explosions or signals that appear to bounce or flatten out at high altitude, it reinforces that belief. But what's actually happening there is not a solid dome. It's layers. Above the Earth, you don't just have air and then empty space. You have multiple regions, each with different properties. You've got the upper atmosphere, the ionosphere, the magnetosphere, and the Van Allen radiation belts. These are all real, measurable structures, but they're not solid. They act and appear solid, but they're not solid. They are energetic and electromagnetic regions, and they interact with waves. So when something travels upward, whether it's a shock wave, a radio signal, or even light, it doesn't just pass through everything unaffected. It can reflect, refract, or bounce depending on the frequency and the properties of the layers it encounters. And from the ground, that can look like it hit something, like there's a barrier or a dome. But it didn't hit a wall in the physical sense. It interacted with a change in medium. The same thing happens with explosions at high altitude. When an explosion expands in thinner air, it behaves differently. It spreads out more. And when it reaches a layer with different density, the expansion pattern changes. That can create a flattened or a mushroom-like shape that looks like it hit something. But again, it just reached a point where the conditions changed. Okay? High altitude balloons are another example that people use. They say the balloons go up, hit the dome, and pop. But in reality, as the balloon rises, the pressure outside decreases, so the balloon expands. Eventually, the material can't handle the expansion anymore, and it bursts. That's it. No dome required. Okay, even things like seeing what appears to be two suns in the sky can be explained in the same way. It's called thermal inversion. That's an optical effect caused by light bending through layers of different temperature and density, similar to how you see mirages on a road. So again, real observations, but incorrect interpretations. Okay? Once you understand that the Earth is not a perfect sphere and that the firmament is not a solid dome, you can start to see how the system actually works. This includes something most people never even consider: the poles. The North and South poles are not just frozen, inaccessible wastelands like we're told. They are highly restricted regions for a reason. They are not just geographical extremes, they are entrance points. So yeah, there's something beyond the ice wall. It's called inner Earth. That's where the lands go. Not continuing outward on a flat surface, but going inward. Because if the Earth is not a solid, perfectly uniform ball, but rather a complex layered structure, then it stands to reason that it may not be solid all the way through in the same way that people assume. There are openings and cavities. And the idea of an inner Earth is not new. It shows up in ancient traditions, myths, and even some suppressed scientific theories. But in modern times, it's been pushed away and labeled as fantasy. So when you combine everything we've talked about, the irregular shape, the anomalies in gravity and magnetism, the restricted access points to the poles, it starts to paint a very different picture. The poles are not just the ends of a globe. They are controlled zones. And the fact that Antarctica is heavily militarized, regardless of what treaties say on paper, should tell you something. Because if there was nothing there, there would be no need to restrict it in the way that they do. Now let's bring this back to motion, because this is another area where people get stuck. People say, if the Earth is spinning and moving through space at insane speeds, why don't we feel it? That's a fair question, but the answer is actually simple once you understand relative motion. If you're on a plane traveling hundreds of miles per hour, you don't feel that speed. You can stand up, walk around, drink a cup of water, everything feels still. That's because you, the plane, and the air inside it are all moving together. There's no external reference point to compare against, okay? The same thing applies to Earth. The Earth is moving and the atmosphere is moving with it. The solar system is also moving. And even the stars in our region of the galaxy are moving in the same general direction. So from our perspective, everything feels stable and still. And that's why the stars don't appear to shift dramatically over time. There is movement, but it's subtle because we're moving with the system. It's like being inside a moving vehicle, looking at something moving alongside you at the same speed. It appears almost stationary. When you put all of this together, the picture becomes much clearer. The Earth is not flat, but it's also not a perfect sphere. It's an irregular, natural body shaped more like a potato than a polished ball. The firmament is not a solid dome, even though it appears that way. It's the result of layered atmospheric and electromagnetic interactions that create the illusion of a boundary. The poles are not just frozen edges. They are controlled access points leading to internal regions of the Earth. And the sense of stillness we experience is not proof that nothing is moving. It's the result of everything moving together in harmony. So instead of getting stuck arguing about whether Earth is flat or round, the real question becomes, what kind of system are we actually inside? And we will answer that question in the next video. So thank you for watching. Everybody have a great day. If you can support me on Patreon, that would be wonderful. All the links to donate and support me are in my bio. And thank you for watching. You guys are the best.